Well, thank you everyone for joining us today for Devex at COP26. I wanted to thank again our innovation ecosystem partner, DI UK, and our ecosystem partners, AGRA, Catapult, Center for Disaster Protection, ESRI, and RTI International, and our underwriter, FHI 360, again, for making this coverage possible. But I'm really excited because right now I'm joined with Devex correspondent Paul Adepoju, who has been here in Glasgow since the very beginning of last week. He's still standing after running around everywhere. So Paul, it's so nice to have you here with us today. I'd love to hear, what are your kind of takeaways from the conversations you've been having this past week plus now?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I think something that is quite obvious that is popping out from all the conversations is that it's not something that is easy to get everybody to be on board. The way the agreement of the Paris Agreement was structured and the conversation and the dialogue, the negotiation, I was made to realize that all the countries have to agree on every item before it is passed. And so, which is becoming really, really serious with different countries trying to set different benchmarks on when and how the targets will be achieved. We also see conversations around rich countries owning up to their contribution to climate change because the fact if once they own up, it simply means that they are duty bound to correct it. So we are seeing lots of negotiations around the wordings, exact wordings of how this is going to happen. But on the bright side, we're also seeing lots of announcements, lots of ambitious goals being set by collaborations and connections of different organizations and countries coming together to actually say that we are going to achieve this by so and so. Yeah, and something that also quite unique about this COP is that it is increasingly becoming more obvious that the private sector has much more bigger roles to play in achieving those goals. So while the rich countries struggle to come up with $100 billion, we are seeing the private sector being asked to come up with hundreds of trillions. Going forward, I think this is seen as a way to actually move forward.
Yeah, so you talk about all the countries coming together and needing to come to agreement. There's been a lot of criticism about leaving out a lot of the countries that are most impacted by climate crisis,
Yes.
the lower middle income countries, LDCs. Do you think that skepticism is founded? Is there hope for optimism from what you've seen so far today? What do you expect to see? What would you say to the critics that are looking at this, wondering if we're really centering those nations and people that are going to be most impacted and are currently most impacted by climate?
Yeah, I agree with you on that sentiment, and I think those sentiments are well founded. There was a time I was asking, I was interviewing somebody that has been that this COP26 is a seventh, and he said what is happening is not unique. That promises like that are being made. There is also this concern about this particular COP26 not being too inclusive. We don't really have free access to everything to everybody. So while that is the case, what we just can see is let's see what the final wordings of the deliberations will be. Every country has a request. Every country has a set of demands, what they believe would be in their best interest. And if such cannot be actually, if they cannot marshal it, we see small countries coming together. We see interest groups coming together. African countries are not negotiating on their own. They have a group of negotiators that they are coming together. Individually, they may not be strong, but when they come together, there is unity in strength. So that is what we see happening. Yeah, like I said, it's a lot to pack in, but we are going to have an indication whether all these concerns are part of what they are addressed in the final wordings. But we still have to be optimistic because we've always known that this is how the debate is going to be quite complex. Yeah, we just take what we have, what we can get from here and move on.
Yeah, no, there is a lot to unpack, a lot that's been happening across the city the past week plus. So what are the stories you will want to continue afterwards? What are you going to be keeping an eye on and holding these leaders and private sector and these commitments to account?
Okay, quite a lot. One thing that was quite unique about this COP26 is being described as the first COP to actually bring health to the center. Before we didn't have a health-focused platform at previous COPs, but that is happening here, and there is still the need. Those health stakeholders are calling for a day to be set aside to actually talk about health in the context of climate change, because one of the things that we believe is going to happen is if climate change begins to be seen from the perspective of healthcare, that this is also an health emergency. Look at how the world was able to quickly mobilize resources and efforts together to address COVID-19. But we are seeing reluctance. The world spent trillions of dollars to quickly address COVID-19, but climate change, they are struggling to come up with 100 billion. So we are going to see how the conversations around moving to the healthcare will be regarded. Then we also look at the seriousness of the United States government about trying to convince everybody that it's back on track. We have President Biden's ambitious promises. We also have President Barack Obama was here yesterday trying to energize and trying to say that, okay, my predecessors did this. Yes, we are fully on track. Yeah, the world is listening. The partners are working, looking at what the insights will be. And I think what we've learned is that how will these conversations around climate change, the actions that need to be taken, will be regarded and be taken serious, irrespective of who is in power. And we also have the influence from China and the Russia and the Saudi Arabian government. And of course, all eyes will also be on what happens in Egypt, because Egypt is hosting the next COP26 and is trying to also garner efforts and convince the rest of the world that it is taking climate change, renewable energy, and other climate change buzzwords quite serious. So a lot of things to keep track of. Yeah,
and a conversation today is that this isn't a conversation that should be happening once a year. It should be happening every day.
Exactly.
So we will be continuing this conversation in our coverage tomorrow. Also, make sure you're subscribed to Devex Newswire, where we'll have even more coverage of the event and what's happening over the next few days. So we look forward to seeing you again tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. GMT, for our continued coverage of COP26. But Paul, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, and have a great day, everyone. Thank you.